feel that forest essence in you. It's difficult to describe, but it's part of the hunt. It's part of what makes mushrooming exciting.
A little bit of mushroom hunting in for some morels. We found a few this year. How many did you find this year?
Only 4, but I don't usually find a lot. They're not. We're very close to the city, and we just don't have like big sprawling morel locations. So I usually find about 10 to 20, but it was a slow year. I think many hunters were out and they just picked them.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a delayed season. It was really cold and very rainy for a long time. It was snowing and hailing, and so the season was pushed back a few weeks. But I think I maybe found 4 as well. But they were delicious. I really like to just slice them up really thin and grill them and saute them on the pan. I like when they're really crispy, and then I'll put them on top of pasta or mix them even on top of a salad. So I try to get the most out of them. They're super flavorful.
I didn't eat mine yet. They're somewhere else are good to dry. Like they're one of the few mushrooms that are good after you dry them. So I usually like when I find 1 or 2, I kind of like dry them until I find more to make a meal. And I just haven't had my huge feast.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. They do dry really well and do retain their flavor. I find though when rehydrating them, it's really important to soak them for a long time. So it's kind of like you have to plan ahead to have your morel meal because otherwise they stay kind of dry when you cook them and they don't necessarily absorb all the oil. So they have to rehydrate in a nice bowl of cold water for at least a couple of hours before actually cooking them up. That's at least what I found. And then I take that water in the bowl sometimes, and I'll use that to kind of splash into the saute pan. So because it does infuse with the morel essence.
Yeah, use the water. The water absorbs a lot of the flavor.
Yeah, so morels are a nice mix of flavor, but they have a really great texture too. So some people are kind of skeeved out by mushroom feeling, but this is a really good like texture you can bite into. It's not chewy, so it's really really good. So morel season's pretty much over, right? Would you say? I mean, it's early June.
Yeah, but I mean, people were finding them last week. I saw pictures online from last week, but I'd say it's over. Maybe if you go north, you'll find more.
Mm-hmm. Well, probably not going to be going on another morel hunt this year. So what's next for you that you're going to be looking out for?
Um, there are gonna be boletes and um, chanterelles, but that's not for another month. There's a mushroom drought between the morels and when the boletes and the chanterelles come out. It's
Hmm.
about a month where there's nothing interesting. I
Yeah,
Yeah, I found some Strophareas, but I don't like them. No.
yeah. Yeah, wine caps are funny. They're like so abundant. They're so beautiful. They're easy to identify. When I was first getting into mushrooming, I was super excited about them, these big, fleshy, safe to eat mushrooms. And then I quickly learned they're really not much to rave about. So I just don't prepare them anymore.
Yeah, the wine caps are all about the sauce. They don't taste good, so you want to have a really good sauce to have them absorb the sauce, the flavor of the sauce.
Yeah.
Then the texture is really good. They're just a great texture.
Yeah, I mean, they do add that element of like a wild food into your meal. They can be these big fleshy mushrooms. You can slice the caps to get that nice curvature of the cap into your meal. So, but they're definitely after you morels, they're nothing in taste.
They
Um,
look great.
this,
They're very imposing. They look like the classic mushroom, like the big red cap, and then has the ring, and the gills have like this soft gray color. They're just very pretty.
they're so beautiful. So they're certainly really fun to photograph, and especially even making spore prints with them. I've done a lot of kind of
Yeah.
spore collages with them. They have this dark purple spore print that it's very rich, and you can easily make your spore print. So they seem to just have a high number of spore count on them. So, and all right. So what's next after that? I mean, I kind of personally feel like once morel season's over, for the most part, with a few exceptions, I'm just kind of waiting for the fall when my takis come out. But there are a few gems in the middle, like you're saying, chanterelles. I know trumpets are one that I'm really excited about, but I don't always find them.
Well, actually, right now I like the dryad saddle. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's just like an interesting something. And if you find the reishi are coming out right now, and when they're young, when they're in the white, soft, spongy state, they're edible. Later they get hard and they're not you can't really eat them, but they're very medicinal. But if you find them right now, they're in the white yellow stage when they're still soft. They taste like liver. They have like very like bloody, like irony taste. And if you're a meat eater, you'll probably appreciate that.
I've never actually eaten those. I've taken them when they're more kind of on that, when they're a little redder, a little tougher, and sliced them up to prepare teas out of. The tea
Yeah.
is extremely bitter.
Yeah.
It's really an experience you're looking for. It's not like something you're like, this is delicious. It's an experience you're going into. But they are really medicinal. They're good for your immune system. They do have some contraindications though for people who take blood pressure medication. So there was a coma dinner once where somebody brought some of that tea and the president was like, nope, got to take that off the table because of the contraindication in case anyone's on blood thinners, which is a common medication these days. So
Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah, so it's fun. You got to really know your mushrooms. You got to know what you're doing with them, why you're eating them, how to prepare them. I mean, that's just so important, how to prepare mushrooms. What are some of your favorite ways to prepare mushrooms?
For most of them, I just like to saute them, and I actually don't like adding flavors and sauces and things like that. Just like the mushrooms by themselves, I like the subtle flavor of the mushroom. So I would just lightly saute them with oil and maybe salt, and that's it for me. But I know other people have gone to crazy recipes, and there's some really really interesting ways to prepare them. And it really depends on the mushroom. Depends on the texture and the way it's structured, because some mushrooms will absorb liquid and oil, and in those cases you probably want to like fry it up to like absorb the oil, or like have it in a sauce. And other mushrooms, they don't absorb, they kind of they don't absorb liquids, so they're not gonna do well in a stew or in a sauce or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to prepare mushrooms, and it really, I think, depends on the mushroom. 'Cause for example, what's coming to my mind is shiitake. So I used to slice shiitake up and I used to saute them, and I just found that that doesn't really work that well for that mushroom. Those mushrooms do really well, I find, when they get boiled. So I slice them up, I boil them up, they infuse into a broth, into the water, and then I can use that water as stock to make soup. And then from there, I have these nice cut up mushroom slices. And then I'll throw them, kind of strain them a little bit. Then I'll throw them into a pan of sauteed vegetables and then just kind of get them in that fiery heat. But I'm not necessarily cooking them in the oil. I do boil them first. And I boil them for like at least 15 minutes of boiling. So folks, sometimes you think mushrooms like at those salad bars when you go to the grocery store and there's like that raw sliced mushrooms. Just stay away from that. Mushrooms need to be thoroughly cooked. So yeah, another mushroom that I do like to saute is actually oyster mushrooms. If you get like a nice kind of flat piece, you grill it on like a nice cast iron pan, and then throw a little maple syrup on the pan too, and it kind of like crisps it and makes it sweet and grills it, and it's almost like gives it a smoky essence to it. So that's a nice tip there, if you want to just really enjoy the flavor of a mushroom.
Yeah, the oysters are very flavorful, but I really just like them on their own, just to enjoy their flavor. You can also like slice them up thinly and just roast them until they're like crispy, like bacon, and just have them like you can like put a little oil on them and then just roast them until they crisp up and just eat them like that. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. As someone who practices a vegan diet, I do find that a lot of times grilled up and sauteed up mushrooms, they resemble bacon for sure.
Yeah, I
Is
think
that,
because of the high protein content.
and it's just slathered in oil too. Put a little salt on it. Yeah, so some of my other favorite mushrooms to eat, and you mentioned this the other day and reminded me of it because sometimes I forget about this one, but Hericium. So that is probably my most favorite tasting mushroom, Hericium americanum. It's not that easy to find in the wild. People do cultivate it. It's also not that easy to cultivate. So I've gone to farmers markets. I was visiting a friend in Northampton, and this guy found these mushrooms. They were like this big, and I had to buy them. I had to. They lasted really well in a brown paper bag in the fridge, and then I would just slice them into thin slices, and I would saute them. I would grill them on the pan, flat onto the pan. They are so delicious, and I can't even describe the flavor. They're just so good.
Yeah, when you read about it, they say anise. It has that anise flavor, but it's not. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Hmm.
They're really good to fry up because they're not like somebody would. Eurasium doesn't look like a regular mushroom. It's not cap and a stem, or it's not a polypore like a shelf. There's these. They come out like a fountain, and then these teeth like kind of hang. There's these hundreds of little tentacle teeth. So they're really good to fry up because the oil goes like in between the teeth and like fries it on like multiple surfaces, and it gets nice and crispy. But then it's very plump. Like the meaty part is like very plump. So you have like crispy fried on the outside, and then like nice plump anise flavor, whatever you want to say it is.
Yeah, I really hope I can get my hands on some this year, either grown or wild. They're good stuff. I also I made some tinctures out of some fresh Hericium. Well, actually, what I first did, I started with the fresh Hericium, sliced them up, and then I dehydrated them just briefly, just to get a little bit of the water content out, but not enough to really dry them. And then I made a double decoction. I made it first I boiled some into water, and then I froze that water for 6 weeks while I steeped the rest of it in what I put in. I put it in brandy because I like to make my tinctures with brandy. So that soaked for 6 weeks. And then once I was done, I strained that out and I mixed them together. So that way the different components that were water soluble went into the water part, and then the parts that were alcohol soluble went into alcohol, and it became this really amazing medicinal mushroom tincture. Hericium is most well known for really enhancing our memory and our kind of brain function. It's one of the few, not just mushrooms, but things in the world that actually has been identified for building neural tissue. So there's a lot of research on it in terms of Alzheimer and that kind of research.
Yeah, it's another great medicinal mushroom. And Hericium is the Hericium family. The most common one is the lion's mane. That's what people would know the most. But the one that grows in our area is called the beartooth, the Hericium americanum. And it's a little different in the way it looks, but they taste the same.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. They're kind of this snowy white, you know, for white being kind of an unusual color in nature. This is a mushroom that comes out and it's snowy white against like the brown bark of the tree. So they really stand out. They're usually a little higher up on the trees. When you find them, it's super exciting. You know, you can scrape them off the bark just a little bit, and you have this nice kind of buoyant, light little, almost like a sea urchin of a creature. So they're fun to even just find. So what are some
It's
other mushrooms?
just to follow up. It's probably an easy mushroom for a beginner because there's nothing else that looks like it. And if you see a picture of it, you'll pretty much know what you have.
That's a good one. So for folks to kind of look that one up, lion's mane, see if you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like and see if you can find it out in the woods. But it's
Or
funny,
bear's foot.
you know, like beginner mushrooms, it's funny. A lot of my friends send me pictures of mushrooms and they think it's something and it's just not. It's just like they're so
Yeah.
off.
Well, it
So
smells like anise, so
yeah. Yes, that's right. It's very fragrant. And you know that mushroom smell, I really love the smell of mushrooms. You know, I can't describe it. It's that
yeah.
fungy smell. They're so earthy. It's not moldy, but it's mushroomy. It's such a nice earthy smell.
Well, speaking of mushrooms that look strange, uh, my favorite are the black trumpets. They look like trumpets, but they're black. They're about this big, although sometimes they grow bigger, and they just pop out of the ground. And they're also known as the trumpets of the dead, just because they kind of come out of the ground mysteriously, like these trumpety things. And they are in the chanterelle family, so they have a very complex flavor. They're not much to chew on. There's not much to eat.
Yeah.
They flavor very interestingly.
Yeah, there's not, it's like interesting. There's not much to them at all. They're very papery thin. They can easily get crushed in your bag or your basket if you're kind of don't separate them and they start to fall apart a little bit. But their flavor and their aroma, I mean, I would probably say this is more of like an aromatic mushroom. So I like to use them more as seasoning than actually like something that I'm eating. So it's like a garnish that's going on top of like my vegan gluten-free pizza or something, like, you know, because you really want to taste the aroma and the flavor of it. So you have
Right.
to find another food though to put it on.
Usually on other mushrooms.
Oh, nice, nice. Really get a nice layer of flavors and complexity there.
I have a jar of them dried, and I keep in my kitchen cupboard. And sometimes I like to just go there and open it and just smell it and just put it back. Like I don't even cook them. I just like to like smell them.
Gary would be so proud of you. It's the joy of mushrooms, right?
Yeah. If I find somebody who can distill them, I'll wear this perfume. It's very complex smell aroma.
Well, kind of with that, a lot of people, you know, in our mushrooms clubs, they do just infuse it into alcohols. So,
Right. There's black trumpet vodka.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd rather have like black trumpet butter or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun things to do and pull out that flavor. So that's definitely not a mushroom like we talked about earlier, like sauteing in the pan. Like that's not what you do with this mushroom. There's other things to do with it. Just sniff it in a jar, add it to vodka. So, you know, there's mushrooms that are fun and aromatic, but then there's also mushrooms that are just so good for our immune system. And like I said at the beginning, like I really, for the most part, just wait until my taki season comes. I think that is the one of the most wonderful gifts that we have in this region in the Northeast is this particular mushroom. It's fleshy, it's delicious, it's big. They're relatively easy to find as long as you're getting the time out to look for them. What do you think of maitake?
I think it's the prize of the Northeast. I think it's, like you said, it's just great. It's big, fleshy. It's tasty. It tastes like the earth. they usually come out when like in the fall when all the leaves are falling down, and the way like the leaves smell, like it's like in the mushroom. It just has that flavor of the fall of yeah, the earth and the forest.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of a lot of what we're saying is like hard to describe about these mushrooms because a lot of it is the essence of them, but it's also the experience of them.
Yeah,
So practicing different ways to prepare them that you like, that work for you. I mean, maitake is cool because I think you can do everything with it. You can saute it, you can grill it, you can boil it, you can dry it, like
you make
it's
jerky.
you can make jerky. Oh my goodness, you made such good jerky. And you know that the first round you made of it, it was delicious, and then the second time you made it, it just got even better. It's really a mushroom to like explore culinarily and try
Yeah.
different things with it.
One thing I find interesting is that you can buy it in the store. It's common enough that you can go to some of the grocery stores and you'll find it. But the one that's sold in the store is about this big. Get a little
Yeah.
packet, and they're baby meitakis, and they're very interesting. You can fry them up, and they go well in pastas and soups and any Asian food. Um, they're in a lot of Asian restaurants. But the ones we find here, they they can be. I can't even like show here, but like they can be enormous. They grow
Mhm.
they grow huge,
Mhm.
and they're very meaty, and they're very heavy. And you said the experience, like sometimes you like find it and you like carrying it and you like bring it home, and it's this organism that you just get that strange feeling out of it. Like they're very alien. Like they're not like something that you used to. It's not like a tree or a like it's not like a flower. Like just being in your house, you're kind of like walking around and you're like, I feel like it's like looking at you. They're just strange creatures.
Absolutely. You know, I've really learned over the years, though, to not be gluttonous, though, and just take the whole damn thing. I
Yeah.
take my time and I pick through. It has kind of like these leaflets on it, but a lot of dirt and bugs and grit can actually grow into the mushroom tissues. So I spend my time like picking through the pieces I want. I do my cleaning in the field. This took some learning. I feel like this takes some like mushroom hunting maturity. Don't take the whole damn thing. Just take the pieces that you want that you're going to process. And if you only have time to cook for tonight, then just take that. Or if you really think you're going to make the maitake jerky and do a big processing, boil them up and then freeze them. That's another thing you could do with these. And they do a great job being frozen. And then you can defrost them and saute them. But just take what you need because you could just take too much and then you have to discard this organism somehow.
Yeah, but they're great. They're great to store. You can saute them slightly and then freeze them, and they'll last for. I've had them for like 3 or 4 years in the freezer, and they're still good.
hmm
You can take them out and eat them whenever you want, and they're still good.
Yeah, and like it's the time of year you find them is in the fall, and that is a great time to get them processed into the freezer through the winter because they are just such good. They're called immunomodulators. These are mushrooms that what they do is depending on your immune system, if it's overactive or underactive, it's going to bring it back into balance. It's such a medicine to value in our diet. So that's why I get really excited about finding them and they taste good, but I just really know I'm making a good decision by investing the time into finding them and processing them because it definitely is a time commitment. This is not just like going to the store, opening a bag of chips. Like you got to walk your ass into the woods. You got to bring it back home. You got to drive home. You got to process them. Like it's an effort to really be able to get these wild mushrooms from the forest onto your plate.
Yeah, but then after you eat them, your body will thank you. You feel different. You really feel it. You feel that forest essence in you. it's difficult to describe, but it's part of the hunt. It's part of what makes mushrooming exciting.